Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Aaron Rodgers is getting comfortable with the Black and Gold Brigade. Also, can the Indiana Pacers take their offense up a notch in Game 3 of the NBA Finals? And baseball needs the Cincinnati Reds to be good again. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Aaron Rodgers officially in the black and yellow, taking his first snaps with the Pittsburgh Steelers at minicamp, and our pal Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers was there to witness the majesty of it firsthand and the spectacle of it, to be sure. Chris, give us your feel for what we saw. I know it's the first day of camp. It was June 10th. There's not a lot to see here, but what did you see here?
I mean, I think you saw an appreciation for like, hey, that's Aaron Rodgers. Like a lot of the Steelers were talking, like Nick Herbig was just like literally like that guy came in the league when I was 3, and so like, you know, it just kind of that realization that like, oh, that's the guy we're playing with now. I think there was a bit of wide-eyed for some of the younger players, but for a lot of the older guys, they're just like Cam Hayward kept making jokes because everybody and their mama showed up to Steelers practice. I'm at Steelers practice every day, but here was Mike Garofalo, here was everybody from all across the country. USA Today had all these people here, and Cam Hayward was just like, oh, they're over here to see me, guys. I'm just so happy that you're here to talk to me. And you know, trying to, it's like, oh, you're here for this guy, but clearly it was just that. But I think the biggest thing was just that Aaron Rodgers, he took part of the warm-ups, the individual drills at minicamp. And again, this is minicamp. It's not even training camp. And that was it. Like, he didn't run 7-on-7s. He didn't run 11-on-11s. They let the Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, Skylar Thompson, they let those guys do it. And Aaron Rodgers is kind of like, yeah, Coach Tomlin just said he wants me to get comfortable and get to know people. And he's like, I'm still learning. He's like, I'm still having to ask, hey, who's this person? Who's that? Hey, where do I go for this? So I think it was still just like, everyone, you show up for your first day of class, you get your syllabus, and you kind of look around and what you're going to be learning this year. So that's very much what just Tuesday was for the Steelers.
How much of a vibe shift is it? Because, we're not that long removed from Mason Rudolph being QB1 on this team and all offseason. And we kept saying, look, this is probably going to happen. And you came on this show more than once and have said on your show, hey, the Steelers are like, if Mason Rudolph has to be the quarterback, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
That being said, Aaron Rodgers, it's got to be a different vibe with the team with him there.
Oh, it is. And it's funny, Mike Thomas straight up said there is no quarterback competition. Don't even play. We're not even playing around with that. And Mason Rudolph said, hey, I kind of, anticipated this. So, it wasn't a shocker to many people. And again, it kind of goes back to, what a lot of people were saying, just like the Steelers they're desperate. They don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. There's been an agreement since March between these two. This was always going to happen. But I do think it does change the vibe as far as hey, now he's in the room. Now they can start applying the things that he can do in an offense that a Mason Rudolph can't. And look, Aaron Rodgers is 41. He'll be 42 in December. He's coming off a 5-win season with the Jets 2 years. But the year before that, he was out after one play. The year before that, he was 8-9 with the Packers. So it's not like Aaron Rodgers by himself is going to change everything. But I think what the Steelers are, and the sense that I got from talking with Aaron Rodgers, because I got to ask him a few questions, is that he doesn't see himself as a guy who's going to try to change everything about the Steelers. He's like, I'm happy to be here with Coach Tomlin. I'm happy to be here part of what they're doing. And I think what the Steelers message is look, we're going to trust you to be able to make some of the reads that you can make because you've played every team in the NFL multiple times. You've seen the dog and pony show. We're going to trust you to kind of be that steadying hand at quarterback while this team hopes to take a step up in its run game. The investments they've made in their offensive line at running back with Caleb Johnson, the young guys across the roster like Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton that they're hoping turn into breakout players this season. That's where the strength of the Steelers is going to be. And the sense that I got from Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin is that hey, this isn't to him, it wasn't a wide-eyed situation. It was just hey, you know what? This is an opportunity. We saw it. We made it happen. Now we're just starting to get to work.
Help us set reasonable expectations for Aaron Rodgers this season, Chris.
I think that the Steelers have been a team. I mean, you've seen it. Mike Tomlin does not have losing seasons, right? And some people are like, oh, this will be it the year. I don't think that's going to be the case. Again, I think you look back at the past few years, the Steelers have managed to find winning seasons with Kenny Pickett, with Mitch Trubisky having to take snaps, with Mason Rudolph having to finish the season to go 3-0 to get them to the playoffs. I think with Aaron Rodgers, a lot of other things have to fall into place. The O-line has to take a step up this year. Zach Frazier, Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, that group has to become a top 14, top 13 offensive line, with the run game becoming much more efficient moving forward. If they do not do that and the defense takes a step back at all, then we could be talking about a problem. But I think where Aaron Rodgers can help the Steelers is he can eliminate a lot of the mistakes that have killed them over the past few years, like just the times where Kenny Pickett would not see a wide open George Pickens running a slant over the middle part of the field, or when Mitch Trubisky would just walk into a sack that he absolutely had no business walking into. The things that have just killed them over and over and over again from the quarterback position. Aaron Rodgers will at least be able to say, hey, like, I might make the throw that I didn't need to make in a certain situation, but the basics of, hey, they're backing off our slot, I'm hitting him for 5 to 8 yards. That's going to set us up with a nice 2nd and 2. There he's going to bring that, and that's something that I think this team has legitimately missed. Even somewhat with Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson did that early on, but as the season wore on and the run game disappeared for the Steelers, teams were able to take away the things that Russell Wilson liked to do because he lived on the outside. He lived at quick dump off passes or the deep ball down the sideline. Aaron Rodgers is going to open up different parts of the field for the Steelers. I don't think they're expecting him to throw nearly as much as he did for the Jets, but that's where it has to work for the Steelers. Is I think if the Steelers are an 8-win team with Mason Rudolph or a 9-win team, I think Aaron Rodgers can get them to 10, maybe 11 wins if all these other things go right for them. But that's my expectations for Aaron Rodgers. Not that he's going to make them Super Bowl contenders, but that he can eliminate some of the weaknesses they've had at quarterback that have held them back the past several years.
You can stay up to date all year on the Pittsburgh Steelers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Steelers on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. If the Pacers want to keep up with the Thunder, they can't just run. They've got to kick it into overdrive. Before we get to that, Primetime is dealing with a health issue. The NBA playoffs are winding down, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes it easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals to assists. There are so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Place that first $5 bet on the underdog Pacers if you want. The Thunder are favored by 5.5 points on the road tonight in Game 3. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Deion Sanders has been away from Colorado's facilities while reportedly dealing with an unspecified health issue at his home in Texas. Though details remain scarce, his son says Coach Prime is feeling well. It's the latest chapter in Sanders' ongoing health journey, one that's included multiple surgeries, media absences, and now a quiet moment of recovery just weeks before fall camp. Over on the diamond, the Nationals look to get one over on the Mets.
Some late inning heroics once again for the New York Mets as they walked off the Nationals in the opener of their 3-game series. It got started in the 8th inning. Who else? Juan Soto and Pete Alonso back-to-back 2-out RBI hits to tie the game. Shout out to Starling Marte with a huge 2-out walk to start everything for this team. And then they get it into extras. Reed Garrett does an excellent job not getting a run across for Washington in the top half. And it's Jeff McNeil swinging first pitch, as we all know Jeff McNeil to do. And the Mets move to 19 games above 500. Griffin Canning a little up in the air. That's something to monitor moving forward. But the Mets keep the good times rolling, and they extend their lead in the National League East to 5 games.
The Cubs tried to avoid a second series loss to the Phillies.
Ian Happ hits 2 home runs, and the Cubs bullpen holds down the fort in Philadelphia. I'm Sam Wilbur from the Locked On Cubs podcast, and Happ hit 2 homers, Bush hit a homer, Dansby hit a homer, and we've been awaiting that offensive breakout, and credit to them for getting it done. But I think the biggest story from this baseball game is 4 2/3 innings of scoreless baseball. Brazier came in, he allowed the inherited runs to score, but then Thielbar, Keller, Presley, Flexen, all scoreless efforts to help the Cubs hold this lead. I gotta say, the Presley story is really interesting, especially his last few outings. The velocity's up, looks like a different pitcher, really confident, and this Cubs bullpen has really helped the Cubs, especially through a stretch where they haven't hit the ball recently as well as they had been, but they did on Tuesday night. Ian Happ, of course, with the big game, 2 home runs. Great to see him starting to get going, because if he can get going, it really takes a lot of pressure off some of the other guys. Cubs will go for the series win on Wednesday in Philadelphia.
Royals hosted the Yanks.
Another Max Fried start following Yankee loss, another Yankee victory. I'm Brian McKeon of Locked On Yankees, and what an unbelievable start for Max Fried, right? Who should be the American League All-Star starter. Max Fried had one of his best starts of the season against Kansas City, struggled towards the end of it, but again, 2 runs through 6 innings, just an unbelievable pitching performance for Max Fried, and plus Aaron Judge hitting one of the longest home runs we've ever seen him hit, and that's certainly saying something. An overall dominant performance and a great way for the Yankees to start their series in Kansas City after dropping the series to Boston at home. We'll be discussing all of that and much more all week on Locked On Yankees. Plus, a return of Giancarlo Stanton is imminent. We'll get to all of it this week.
The Pacers need their offensive engine, Tyrese Halliburton, to be more aggressive. Locked On Pacers host Tony East and Locked On Thunder host Ryan Stiles discuss what Halliburton in Indiana can do to get things going in Game 3.
Yeah, look, I think that Halliburton just takeover mode isn't going to be there. I think it's on the Pacers just as much as him, though, to mitigate that. It's not going to be easy in any way, but I mean, some stars have had better games than the one he just had, and I'll be very curious where that shakes out, because Siakam's had more moments where it feels like he can take over because he can punish Smalls when the switch comes at the right time. They do a good job of making it hard for him to get the ball in those moments, but yeah, they've got to try to find a way to do that, because without him, the rest of their team has looked poor. Did you expect look, I know that both these teams pride themselves on their depth, and it was a story every series they played all the way to get here that they had more depth than their opponent throughout the playoffs. Did you expect the bench minutes to be this lopsided in favor of OKC?
I didn't. I didn't expect it to be this lopsided. I thought that the Thunder would have a little bit of an edge just because of the nature of the Thunder's, role players. All due respect to Thomas Bryant and company, it's a little different having the production that they had to help Indiana get here against this Thunder defense versus who they played in the East. Whereas, the Thunder's bench is more reliant on, make or miss stuff where it's like Wiggins can do that. Like Wiggins can make these shots where you rightfully at home in Indiana are like, how in the world did he do that? It's unbelievable. That's like that's just luck, right? Like, and you can feel that way because of who he is. But he puts himself in position to make these step back threes and the spin move against Siakam. It's just like that nature of the variance of these archetype of players. I thought lended itself to OKC, but not by this margin.
Caruso's obviously the best singular bench player, I think, for either team in this series. But I just did a whole long thing after Pacers Knicks about how the Siakam plus bench groups were like so significant in that series. They've got nothing from those groups. Like Toppin was pretty good in Game 1. McConnell was good in Game 2. Mathurin's had some nice moments, but they just haven't had enough success from those groups in total. I think Daigneault does a good job of never having too many bench guys on the floor. The Pacers have gotten themselves kind of drowned a few times in 4 or even 5-man bench group lineups in this series, but they just need more from everybody there. And it's been so interesting that this series, the Pacers have their strengths and they can use them. It's not like they can't play fast against the Thunder. It's not like they don't play their depth, but those two things have been just like massive legs up against all these other teams throughout the playoffs. And it's like, oh, the Thunder don't care if it's a fast game. Oh, they have lots of depth too. I found that those two things combined with the paint defense have made it so a lot of what the Pacers style has been cut off. And I've said a lot throughout the playoffs, the way for the Pacers to win after their losses is to be themselves. And I still believe that they have to be themselves better than they were in game 2. But that's what makes the Thunder such a unique challenge for them, is they are good and comfortable in a lot of the environments that the Pacers like to thrive in. I think you've seen that throughout the series so far. And so that's where this goes next. Creativity. Where can the adjustments come? This is where you make the big bucks, get on the clipboard, figure something out, because this is what the Steve Nash quote is that's been cited a million times, that Rick Carlisle keeps saying, never feels like you're going to win again after you lose. It feels like you'll never lose again after you win in the playoffs. And the Pacers right now are on the bad side of that, but I think they've got to do some solution hunting, just because it's been tougher for them to kind of be themselves in the series than any other series, even though it's 1-1. Like what I'm saying sounds worse than it is. I just think they need to be solution finding in a big way right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it's going to be like the storyline heading into the series of Mark versus Rick. Like Rick has an opportunity here in game 3 to do something a little bit unorthodox, which is what he's known for. What he's been built on is by being unorthodox and just throwing something wild at Shea and making Shea, you're never going to make a player like Shea become a non-factor in a game because there's just too many ways for him to score and too many positions he can put you in to force you to let him score. And as Rick said after game 2, like mark him down for 34 points before they even get on the plane to come to Indiana. But how can you limit Shea or force Shea to play, again, not passively, but do what they're doing to Halliburton? Because both Halliburton and Shea have that element in them of, I'm just going to make the right play. Yes, they both get gaudy stats and they both are the engine of the team, but they also make the right play over and over and over again, no matter how their teammates are playing. And so if you can just put Shea in a crowd, he's going to trust his teammates regardless of the outcome of those shots from his teammates, to where that helps you stack possessions where the best player on the floor is not taking the shot to try to put points on the board. And that's ultimately a win for Indiana. So that's one big adjustment. I think another one is one that you hit on, of just figuring out the bench lineups better, like Mark has done. Like Mark puts, the reason why the Thunder, I think, I've had the bench advantage so far is because of always staggering, like Shea's in there or J-Dub's in there, Hartenstein's in there or Chet's in there in game 2. And then you're working around, hey, Caruso is not some bench player, right? In the typical stain of a bench player that you think of. Casey Wallace is a literal starter in this series. So then you're working with Wiggins or you're working with Kenrich Williams, who's like the ultimate veteran on this team alongside Caruso. Can Rick find lineups that, hey, there is no more games here in a few days. Like this is the time to be playing guys 45 minutes or more in a game. And can you earlier in the game not go to the all bench lineups really at all in the NBA Finals unless it's a blowout? I think would be huge for him in that sense. And then for the Thunder, it's always hard to make the adjustments after you win. One adjustment that I think that you can make though is ensuring that you still are allowing Isaiah Hartenstein to impact this game, whether it be from a double big standpoint or from a single big standpoint as a playmaker. Because the thing about the Thunder is they have a lot of guys who are really good secondary passers and connective passers. They don't have a lot of guys who are very good passers at creating advantages. And Hartenstein creates advantages with his pass. And so whether you play double big lineups a lot or not, you've got to find a way for Hartenstein to get more minutes, I think.
Chet was better. Wiggins was better. Caruso was better. Toppin was worse. Siakam was worse. The Pacers need to be better in game 3.
Stay up to date all year on the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Thunder on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And of course, we will have Tony and Ryland after game 3 from the arena in Indianapolis tonight. Coming up, the MLB needs the Reds to be much, much better. The Cincinnati Reds are at a crossroads, holding firm at 500. Will they falter down the stretch or will they take off in the latter portion of the season? Locked On MLB host Sully explains why a great Reds team would be perfect for baseball.
And I'll tell you something, I fervently believe that the Cincinnati Reds, if they become a popular team, could become a very important team in all of Major League Baseball. First of all, they are one of the few, I think, baseball first cities. Now, football is king. There's no getting around that in terms of popularity in the United States. And talking about basketball and hockey at this point when the playoffs are wrapping up, you'll see that there are some cities that go crazy for this team or that. But when you think about cities where baseball has the more attention than football, I think Boston, yes, I know that when the Patriots are great, the interest of the Patriots are sky high. But I've also been in Boston when the Patriots stink. There's always interest in the Red Sox, whether they stink or not. New York, I think, is also a baseball first city, more so than their football teams. Now, you could make the case that they're a basketball first city, but I think that the love that fans have for the Mets and the Yankees are the strongest of the sports teams in New York. And I absolutely think that's the case in St. Louis, where that is absolutely a baseball first team, even though hats off to the St. Louis Blues when they won the Stanley Cup a few years ago. Cincinnati, I think, is another one.
This is what happens way too often in baseball. A young phenom comes into the league. They take off. Elly De La Cruz is an incredible player. He's incredibly fun to watch. But guess what? The Reds stink. And maybe they stink a little less this year, but they're still not relevant. This is not the, hey, we're going to compete in the National League, Reds. And this happens too often. This is not a problem in other sports where stars can shine despite their teams not being great. And we see even in big markets, this is not a market problem. This is not a Cincinnati problem because Mike Trout floundered for years, even as he's putting together one of the all-time great baseball resumes. The Angels can't put together a team around him, and so it gets lost. If Mike Trout played for the Yankees or the Dodgers or even the Mets, who've had more success than the Angels, certainly lately, it would be a much bigger deal. It would be much better for baseball. That's just not happening. And the longer that continues, and the longer that continues to be true, baseball has to figure that part of it out too. The longer baseball will remain a provincial sport and no longer America's pastime. That's just the reality. And finally, according to those on the scene, Panthers minicamp starting to sound like a sibling rivalry. Bryce Young jawing at JC Horn, Horn firing back and trash talk flying in all directions. Horn even liking the vibes to the 2015 Super Bowl squad, where daily chirping between Cam Newton and the defense helped fuel a title run. JC Horn was, of course, not there in 2015. Maybe, just maybe, the Panthers are finally tired of being, the Panthers. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, do the Pacers strike back against the Thunder in Game 3? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.